should be all set. Good evening. I'd like to welcome everybody to the public hearing for the Planning and Zoning Commission for Tuesday, April 12th, 2022. Our first item is Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. We have a few commissioners absent tonight, so I'm going to sit Commissioner Carey for Commissioner Foley. And our order of business tonight will be first to hear from our applicant, then we will hear from our town staff, then we will hear from members of the public, first those in favor, and then those against or having questions or concerns, and then we'll hear from commissioners. If everyone could please make sure their cell phone is on vibrate, we would appreciate it. And for anybody from the public, we have a sign-in sheet for anybody who would like to speak under the public hearing. And at this time, I'll call our first applicant, application 22-10P 1496 Realty Associates. Do we have somebody here representing them? Oh, 1 second. I'll turn to our interim secretary, Commissioner Cavagnaro, to read the public notice.
Thank you, Chairman. To be published in the Journal Enquirer Friday, April 1st, 2022, and Thursday, April 7th, 2022. South Windsor Planning and Zoning Commission notice is hereby given that there will be a public hearing on Tuesday, April 12th, 2022 at 7 p.m. in the council chambers of the South Windsor Town Hall to consider the following. Point 1, application 22-10P 1496 Realty Associates. Request for a 2-year temporary and conditional permit for use of approximately 4,500 square feet of lawn area for outdoor storage of trailers on property located at 1496 John Fitch Boulevard, I-Zone. To view this meeting, please tune in to Channel 16. If your provider is Cox Cable, or go to gmedia.swagit.com/live. Copies of the application are on file in the office of the town clerk and or planning department, and online at https://www.southwindsor/ct.gov/planning-department/pages/planning-and-zoning-commission-applications. At this hearing, interested persons may be heard, and written comments made by the public will be received by mail or email. Persons who may require an accommodation can contact staff Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. at 860-644-2511, extension 2329. Bart Pasakonis, Chairman, Planning and Zoning Commission.
Thank you very much. If you would, please approach the podium, introduce yourself.
Good evening. I'm Bruce Lefevre, the owner of 1496 John Fitch Boulevard, which is a commercial building.
Yeah, if you could just make sure you speak into the microphone. It works best when you're 3 to 6 inches away from it.
6 inches, how's that? Better?
Good. If you could just raise it up just a little. Right there. Perfect. Thank you.
That all right?
Yep. Much better.
Should I start over?
No, you're good.
Well, thank you for considering this request. This came about rather unusually because a friend of mine who was originally storing these containers at a different location, over the past 2 years, the property that he had the containers on came under hard times, and he had to vacate rather quickly. He's a friend of mine, so I was doing him a favor, and it's a temporary. I understand from the publication it says 2 years, but I've been told that it shouldn't take him that long to secure another property, and I figured because of what's happened all the businesses, all the people that have struggled over the last 2 years, this was the least I could do to help a friend. So I ask you to just grant the request for a temporary extension.
Okay, does that complete your presentation?
I'm sorry?
Does that complete your presentation?
Yeah, I really don't have, it's pretty
Okay.
clear cut.
Okay, thank you. We'll turn to our town staff, our Director of Planning, Michelle Lipe.
Thank you. So this is a request for a 2-year temporary and conditional permit for the use of approximately 4,500 square feet of lawn area for outdoor storage of trailers on property located at 1496 John Fitch Boulevard in the industrial zone. This application came about as a result of a zoning violation. We noticed the site plan had exceeded. There is an approved site plan on here, which allows for about 65% coverage with the existing coverage, so this puts it over the 65%, so therefore it's not something that can come under a site plan modification and actually expand that. So really the temporary conditional permit is really the only option under this situation out here now. So we did talk to the applicant since he filed the application, and he is willing to extend the fencing along the frontage there if the commission does approve this on a temporary basis. The other thing in visiting the site, we did notice 2 spotlights that I talked to the applicant about. Eversource is very good for putting spotlights, which, a lot of people need for security reasons. We just need to get them in dark sky compliant mode, which they're not at this time, but that's something we can certainly work with the applicant on. So the wording of the temporary conditional permit is that temporary conditional permits may be granted by the commission for a period not to exceed 2 years. Such approval may be given after a public hearing if, in the judgment of the commission, the public convenience and welfare will be substantially served, and the appropriate use of neighboring property will not be substantially or permanently injured, and traffic and other hazards will not result from such use. If this application is approved, again, we just requested the lighting come into compliance and condition it with putting the fencing along the frontage there to provide screening. Typically, outdoor screening would be screened from any of the public ways. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
I have one question on the fencing. Is there a height limit that you need to have that fence at? The fence that's there now is like 5.5 or 6 feet, just about. Is that enough?
I think, that would be up to the commission's discussion.
We'll be going over that under our comments.
Okay.
Okay. Just for the record, I will ask if there's anybody from the public who would like to speak in favor of this application, please step forward. Hearing and seeing none, is there anyone who would like to speak against or have questions or concerns? Please step forward. Hearing and seeing none, I will turn to commissioners. Commissioner Cavagnaro.
I have, I think, an email to read into the record, or a letter. Is this part of it?
Is that,
That's provided by the applicant.
right?
Okay.
That's part of his.
Okay.
That's his request, yeah.
Right.
Other than that, I have no comments on this.
Okay. Commissioner Dexter?
I have no comments.
Commissioner Carey?
I have no comments.
Okay. I do have some comments. How long have these trailers been there?
I'm going to say since September
Of,
this past year, 2021.
Michelle, when did I first contact Planning Department about these trailers?
I honestly don't know. I could go back and see when we contacted the applicant. It would have been sometime within a month of that period of time. So it's been a couple of months ago, but time gets away from me quickly. Sorry about that.
Yeah, it's,
Don't forget, I'm old and living on a fixed income, and I can't remember anything. It's the Seinfeld line.
okay. The lights that are on the side of the building, when did those go up? The additional lights. You already had some lights that were part of your approval that were dark sky compliant.
Right, and we had 3 robberies on the property. First one was a major one where they stole a lot of tools out of my truck and out of my trailer and out of my tenant's service truck. And we have 360-degree cameras around the building, and we were able to not only get the license plate of the guy who came in and stole the stuff, but we also got a picture of him as he looked up at the camera. So the police were able to track him down, and he was arrested, and he had been accused of 8 or 10 other crimes. So that was one time, and we got justice out of that one. But twice more, or 3 more times, people have come into the yard at nighttime when the trucks were there and cut off the catalytic converters. And you may or may not know, but those are a couple of $1,000 to replace each, and insurance doesn't cover that. So when the Eversource people came by and asked me if they had a program where commercial buildings could get additional lighting for their property, well, I was all for it, because it lights the lot up. We've had 0 incidences since we put the lights up. I'm hoping that that's part of what's happened. I'm not sure. Michelle explained to me what the concern was, and if we put a shield or a hood over the top of the light, I suppose that I'll have to talk to my electrician and see if they can get that done. But these are the lights that were provided for us by Eversource.
Okay, but they do not meet the approval conditions that were part of your approval.
Well, I don't follow you.
You had a lighting plan that was included in your application,
This last one, or the original?
2016, I believe?
Okay.
Okay. Now, these lights do not comply with that. And I don't think they should be there. I think they should be removed. We don't allow outdoor storage unless it's screened. Originally, when this application came before us, if it was the same one, you were planning on building a building back there, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And that never happened?
No, we ran into variance issues, and so I decided to scrap the project.
Okay. So these trailers are for a friend of yours?
Yes.
Okay. You had mentioned earlier about the height of the fence. I don't believe your current fence, if it was the same height of that, it still wouldn't cover 3 feet of the trailers, maybe more. I don't believe that the trailers should be there. I think they're an eyesore. I understand you wanting to help your friend, but I don't see any reason why we should compromise the regulations or compromise the zone, how the zone looks, just because you want to be nice to your friend. I think it sends the wrong message to every other business and warehouse in the industrial zone. 4,500 square feet is approximately 67 by 67 feet. We have regulations for a reason. The regulations cover the lighting. They tell you where you can function on the site. Apparently, that's not too important to you, because the past two changes.
Importance has nothing to do with it.
Excuse
It's
me,
not that kind
I
of
have
an
the
issue.
floor. The past two changes, it didn't ever occur to you to contact the town?
This was something that had to be done rather quickly, procedures and
The
whatnot.
lights had to be done rather quickly?
Yeah.
And when did Eversource come around with that?
You mean on the lighting?
Yeah,
Oh, I have to look it up, but it was a year or so ago.
okay. Neither one of these things comply, and I cannot in good faith move forward with approving them. Commissioners, anything else? Commissioner Dexter?
Is it appropriate to have less than a 2-year period?
Yeah, it's up to 2 years that you can grant.
Up
So
to
you
2
can
years.
grant anything, you can't do anything longer than a 2-year period.
But we could
You could do 6
approve-
months, you could do, you've done a year in other situations,
Do you
so.
consider that?
I haven't heard any reason that, I mean, you're talking about going directly against our regulations for a use that isn't even part of his business. I understand the lighting part of it, but still, dark sky compliant lights are the rule. And the lighting you have up there, I looked at it, I don't see a hood that would work with those lights. They aren't really, I don't think it's really made for a hood. It's made to brighten up the next quarter mile. You cannot miss those lights. I think I've said everything I want to say. Michelle, is there any reason to keep the public hearing open?
It's not, sorry, no.
Commissioners, any reason to keep the public hearing open? Okay, then our public hearing will close at 7:16 PM, and we'll address this later under deliberations. Okay, I'll now open our regular meeting of the South Windsor Planning and Zoning for Tuesday, April 12th, 2022. Our first item on our agenda is public participation. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak on something that is not on our agenda? Now would be the time. Hearing and seeing none, we'll move into our new business. We have application 22-09P Simmons Soccer Field temporary and conditional permit.
Hi, Tom Simmons. Nice to meet you all. I want to apologize for last week. I ended up hitting my head and getting a concussion, so I was knocked out. So the meeting was not going to happen, and I apologize for taking up your time.
You weren't on the agenda, so you,
I thought
no
it was last
worries, no.
Friday. I wasn't last Friday?
No,
I'm
you-
still not over, but anyways, I got the big splinter.
You're
out of
always
my
set
head.
for tonight,
Or
so
2
you're
weeks
good.
ago.
You're good. No, you're all set. You're always
Okay.
set for tonight, so.
Sorry. Yes, all right. Still a little. I'm getting there. Same as what I've been doing, I think over 10 years. I just want to keep doing what I love doing for another 2 years. And I don't know if anything's changed or been brought up. Only thing I do down there now is I mow my side of the road all the way down and all the way around, because I think one of the big mowers got tangled up in my fence and took a big part of it down, and I had to repair it. So now I'm doing Sullivan Ave and West Road all the way down, garbage and mowing it, weed whacking it, so. And I think the town figured it out, because they just don't even bother with it anymore. But that's it.
Okay, we'll turn to our Director of Planning, Michelle Lipe.
Thank you. So this is a request for the renewal of the temporary and conditional permit to allow soccer fields and associated parking, southwesterly intersection of Sullivan Ave on West Road. It's our general commercial zone. Mr. Simmons has been operating at this location since about 2011. Originally sought this temporary and conditional permit because we did not allow outdoor recreation in our general commercial zone. And it was temporary at the time, and it's just worked out for him for many years, and, you know, he continues to use that property. I did indicate the hours of operation, typically Monday through Friday, 6 to 7:30, with games on Saturday and Sunday. They did request in 2014 the use of portable lights. If you go out there today, you see those out there. They use those, they're able to play till a little bit later, 8 o'clock. I don't think your hours have changed much
No, we
over
usually
the
stay to
years.
7:30. And my neighbor's works in the fire department. He just wanted me to move him down to the other field, you know, because sometimes the wind blows them. So I moved them all the way down the other end. But he's been a great neighbor.
So there has been a lot of cleanup on the property. I know that the corner brush has been removed, and there's some landscaping that probably gets spruced up, I'm guessing, as the
Well, the
season
cows
goes on.
came in and ripped down my arborvitaes
Yeah.
from Poodler's place. So I have to replace a lot of arborvitaes. But yeah, we're trying to keep that corner looking good. It was all brush at one time.
And with the original approval, there was always the idea that there might be two fields, and the commission always worked with the applicant that if more parking were needed, he'd come back to the applicant with that. The only thing that we would be looking for at some point, if this goes into any kind of permanent development, is there are two properties there, a corner property and a larger property that really function as one property. So from assessor's perspective, they should be combined by deed to one property. And we really need to call this a West Road address for 911 purposes. So those are things I've talked to Tom about before. They're really things that are not really in his control. They're more in the town and the owner's control. But those are things that, we'll work on doing. But being under the temporary conditional permit, it's still something we can get accomplished. So other than that, we would, have the applicant return in 2 years if he's still doing the same thing.
Okay, thank you very much. At this time, I'll turn to commissioners. Commissioners, any questions, comments, concerns? Just on your lighting, I believe you're doing it 6 to 7:30, and then they possibly stay on until 8 so that people can exit the field, or?
No, it's usually, I want to get the kids home because it's school night.
Yeah.
So I just, they stay right on, I usually end at 5 minutes short, so 7:25. Kids make a beeline for the parking lot and they go off.
Okay.
So no, nothing longer than 7:30.
Okay. I'd just like to make sure, I mean,
Yeah.
the kids' safety is ultimately the important
Sure.
thing. That-
You're absolutely right, though. A lot of times when I was down the other end, I would turn them towards the parking lot. So the kids have a nice lighted lane all the way there,
Okay.
all the way to the parking lot. And then once the last kid gets in,
Okay, good. I think you take great care of the site. It looks good. Michelle, have we had any complaints or anything?
No, I
regarding-
think the only concern I have is your banners are looking ragged, so I'm sure they'll be spruced up this year. Your banners along Sullivan Ave,
yeah.
they need to,
And my flowers took a little bit
yeah.
of beating.
So when the springtime comes, we'll look for new banners out there.
Alright.
so.
Okay,
I do have a quick question, meaning the two lots. I've been in the Wappin Church now for, I think, 22 years. I rent the Wappin Church gym every winter for the kids to train in, and I usually rent it 4 or 5 days a week. There was a thought, and I ran it by Michelle. I hope I ran it by you, I don't know. I had it drawn, one of the dads is an architect. He does schools, bunch of schools all over the state. And he drew me up a small little building that would fit in that area that I cleared. And I wanted to see eventually if I can move forward in a little spot that we could just go inside during the winter and train in. But I don't know. I think I forwarded the drawings over to Michelle at one time, and then she sent them back. And now that Mr. Pooler's no longer with us, I'm going through another designer. Even though he does schools throughout the state of Connecticut, I wasn't going to use his company because he was too expensive. He just did it as his daughter's in a club, pro bono, here you go. I'll draw it up for you, but you have to. And I think Michelle said I had to get back to, I think, wetlands or meet.
Yeah, well, it'll be a site plan, so we'd need to make sure your wetlands as well as coming to this commission. And then if there's any facilities, it would be water pollution control too, so it really depends on the scope of it. But at the very least, you'd be in front of wetlands and planning and zoning with a site plan.
But with materials so expensive, I don't foresee it. We're just trying to get a place that we can go into.
Yep.
Because the Wappin Church is, again, it's almost $60+ an hour, so it's a lot. In 20 years, it's like, oh. Not a huge building, just something that would fit, I guess, on that building lot that's there on the corner where it was cleared. I believe there was a house there at one time, a physical house on that corner, years and years ago. So I guess that's why it's put into 2 lots, the property.
Yeah, that's definitely the history of it. There was a house
Yeah.
there that was taken down. Yep.
So
Yep.
I guess, yeah, we'll have to revisit that another
Yeah.
time, if it happens.
yeah, so what I would suggest is you work with our town staff, and
Yeah,
right now, we just have the TNC in front of us,
okay,
so,
all right.
okay. Commissioners, what's your pleasure? And I just want to remind the commission that with 4 commissioners, only 4 commissioners here, you need 4 votes for a motion to pass. So I just want to remind you about that. Commissioner Dexter?
I will make a motion to approve application 22-09P. Temporary and condition permit will expire on April 12th, 2024. Must be renewed before that time if the use is to continue. Then there are 2 standard conditions. Should I read those?
Yeah,
Why
please.
not? If there are buildings, structures, signs, or other items that require a building permit or other town approvals or permits, all such approvals or permits must be obtained prior to construction or use of the site. All freestanding signs and/or building signs require the issuance of a sign permit before they are erected. Number 3, parking for this use is allowed on-site only. No parking is allowed on public streets or within the right-of-way of public streets, nor on the Town of South Windsor property on the easterly side of the West Road. If the parking lot becomes inadequate, use of the fields must be discontinued until adequate parking is provided. If the applicant decides to expand the parking area, a plan must be submitted to town staff for review and approval. And lastly, number 4, a deed combining all the properties into one lot shall be submitted. So
Okay.
we're gonna,
Yeah, that's the assessor's request, so yeah.
okay, so
We'll
we're gonna
work
make
with the
that
applicant on
an
that.
approval condition.
Okay. So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none.
Do we, is our applicant in agreement on this? Or doesn't
It's,
matter?
your hearing's closed, doesn't
Oh,
matter.
got it, okay. Okay.
Okay. Again, we have a motion and a second, no discussion. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you all.
Okay.
No, you're fine, you're good.
Our next item is application 22-12P J.E. Shepherd Company. Do we have somebody here?
I don't see anybody here.
It's going to be a short night.
These obviously have been in existence for many, many years. If you want me to provide a report, I'd be happy to do that. If you want to
Well,
let them off.
The first one, I have issues with, because their last instruction was to come back.
So why don't we put them on a future meeting then, and not take them up tonight? And
Okay.
make sure someone's here to present them. James King, I know, wasn't going to make it, but he indicated someone's going to be on their behalf, so I'm not
Yeah.
sure what happened.
Numbers 3 and 4, I don't see a problem with moving forward on those.
Tell me which one those are, Chairman. I'll do
Number 3 is the TNC for Inspiration House Publishers at 1865. And the 4th one is the Home Farm Apartments on Windsorville Road. So we'll move forward with those. So application 22-13P, if you want to
Sure.
give a,
So this is a request for a renewal of a temporary and conditional permit that was originally granted by the Zoning Board of Appeals back in 1974 for an office for the Inspiration House Publishers in the existing post office building that's at 1865 Main Street in the A40 zone. Property is owned by the applicant, currently houses East Windsor House Post Office as well as an apartment. Applicant used this location in the past for Inspiration House as well as the Giving Tree, approved through the ZBA temporary and conditional permit. Current use is the inventory of cards and books of the Inspiration House Publishers. There are no retail sales, and all shipments are made directly from the East Windsor Hill Post Office. The applicant indicated about 4 hours a week is about how often it's used, with a car being parked along Main Street along the frontage there. Again, the temporary and conditional permit is, they may be granted by the commission for a period not to exceed 2 years. We do allow for the commission to grant renewals without a public hearing, but with an application to the commission. There is no requested planning modifications. We've had no concerns expressed about this over the years as well.
okay, thank you. So commissioners, questions, comments, statements? Michelle, have we had any issues with this TNC?
No, not at all. No.
Okay. All right. Commissioners, a motion would be in order.
Make a motion, we vote to approve application 22-13P, J. Shepherd Company. The permit is for a 2-year renewal and will expire on April 12th, 2024. If this use is to continue beyond that date, a renewal will be required.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Questions, comments? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay, our next is number 4, application 22-14P, J.E. Shepherd. Michelle?
So this again is a renewal of a temporary conditional permit for 2 apartments located at 176 Windsorville Road in the RR zone. Original approval was granted in 1993. That property has a variety of non-conforming uses on it. It has been used for a variety of things over the years, but now it has the 2 apartments. We don't allow for 2 accessory apartments in the rural residential zone. That's why this has been handled traditionally as a temporary conditional permit. The one comment I would say, it is serviced by wells, so it does require an annual report to be submitted to our health officer. They have been up to date with that, but we would request another approval condition just to remind them of that. Again, the same temporary conditional permit criteria apply. There are no engineering comments on this application, and if approved, the planning department has no modifications to request.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, what's your pleasure? Commissioner Cavagnero?
Make a motion, we vote to approve application 22-14P, J.E. Shepherd Company. The applicant must must test the water annually and provide the results to the town's environmental health officer. Point 2, the permit is for a 2-year renewal and will expire on April 12th, 2024. If this use is to continue beyond that date, a renewal will be required.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments, concerns?
I have a question.
Commissioner Dexter?
Is there any chance that the applicant or the owner would be willing to deed restrict this property?
Certainly something I can ask them about. There's different housing types on it, so I will certainly make it a point to ask them.
Okay. Just
Okay.
seems like a good,
Good question. Thank you. Any other questions,
I have
comments?
a quick question on point 1 of the standard approval.
Number 1?
Yeah, when I read that, it said must work, must test. Am I, is that what it should say, or is that just not proper grammar?
Must work and test? Okay, so we'll just cross out the second must and, okay, great. Thank you for pointing that out. Okay, commissioners, anything else? We have a motion and a second. No further discussion. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay. Our next item is application 22-10P, which is 1496 Realty Associates. Commissioners, you've heard how I feel about it. I see light. Commissioner Dexter.
along the same lines of questions during the hearing, it's going to take, if we don't pass this, it's going to take the landowner some time to remove the trailers, correct? I mean, it's not going to happen overnight, right?
I would imagine it would not happen overnight, and just to play this out, if it goes into a zoning enforcement issue, there is a period of time under zoning enforcement before it would happen as well, so.
Okay.
That's
Like
just the
2 or 3
reality of
months,
zoning.
or- Okay.
But in regards to that, zoning enforcement has already issued a complaint on that, correct?
Correct, so we're in the process. So what happens is if it were not successful, then we would be picking up where we left off. So, yeah.
Okay. Okay, Commissioner Carey.
You know, I agree that it's really important for our town to follow its regulations. But I also think that we have all been under like a very strange situation with what has occurred around the pandemic over the last couple of years. And so, you know, I know I'm new, so I probably shouldn't be saying this, but, you know, I think that if we could just set this up for like 3 months, just because of the situation and because, you know, and that at the end of 3 months, it couldn't be renewed, and then if the trailers were still there, you would have to proceed with your zoning. What that would do is buy time to find other combinations for these, and, you know, I don't know, I just think that the pandemic has just made some things more difficult for people, and, you know, I'd like to see that we could try and help somebody who's in our town.
Okay, Commissioner Cavagnero?
I think I'll have to agree with our chairman. If it's from what I saw, and I'll be completely honest, I probably didn't read too much into it for 2210. I wasn't aware that it was against our regulations. I had to look a little bit deeper into finding it. But if it goes against our regulations, I just don't feel comfortable voting in the affirmative for this application. I mean, we're supposed to be voting on applications affirmative if they do comply with our regulations. So that's just how I feel on it.
Okay. Okay, commissioners, what's your pleasure?
Vote to approve, or I make a motion to vote to approve application 22-10P, 1496 Realty Associates. The permit is for a 2-year temporary and conditional permit for the storage and will expire on April 12th, 2022. If this use is to continue beyond that date, a renewal will be required. A permit is required for the lighting that has been added to the southerly end of the building to ensure that it meets the zoning regulations and is dark sky compliant.
And just to clarify, it should be 2024 if you're doing the 2-year permit.
Right,
Yeah.
okay. Okay, so we have a
second.
motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion, questions, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Nay. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Cavagnero,
Nay.
Commissioner Dexter,
Aye.
Commissioner Carey, Chairman Pasiconis.
Aye.
Nay. So the motion fails 2 for, 2 against. Okay, our next item of business is number 6, application 21-53P, Miller Heights subdivision, which is for 2 90-day extension to file the Mylars in the office of the town clerk. Okay, Michelle, do you have a report on this or no?
I'm sorry, it was interrupted. What was the question?
We're on
Apologize.
application 21-53P, Miller Heights
Yeah,
subdivision.
no, I have no comment on it. Just a standard request for the 90-day extensions.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's a standard if it's not filed within the 180 days that this would apply? Would the,
So you're given 90 days, right, when you get an approval, you're allowed to request 2 additional 90 days. After that, the subdivision expires. So if it doesn't get filed within 270 days, it's not valid.
right. Okay. Commissioners, what's your pleasure? it would just be
Yeah, just say that we move to approve the 2 90-day extensions for application 21-53P.
okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments, discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay, do we have any bonds?
No, you do not.
No bonds. Okay. Minutes, we had minutes from March 15th and March 22nd.
Chairman, if I may, did you see the?
Please.
Did you see the email from Steve Wagner with his changes?
Yeah, was that to the March 8th or the 15th?
The 15th, so I included those in a draft on my own with
Okay.
those changes. So just so you know, would be included if you accepted
Okay,
those minutes tonight.
okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Yep.
So, did anybody have any questions, comments, concerns with either sets of minutes? If not, we can accept them by consensus with the changes that Caitlin and Steve made. Agreed?
Agree.
Agreed, thank you. Okay, old business, Michelle.
Not really an old business, just for next week's agenda, just wanted to let you know, we're going to have an executive session with 2 items on it, both the Talbot Lane and the Sullivan Plaza Geisler. The meeting will be starting at 6:30 in the Madden Room downstairs. Immediately following will be our special meeting. Both myself and Jeff Folger will be there to talk about the housing moratorium and talk about some subdivision information, looking at bulk requirements, whatnot. So I'd request everybody bring your zoning regulations with you and your subdivision regulations. We're going to take advantage of the big screen down there, pull up some stuff to look at. So that's what's on tap for next week. So we're looking forward to that. And we'll be talking about some future meeting dates. As I mentioned to the chair, we'll be looking at doing some planning and zoning training. I have a couple dates that we can offer and see, so bring your calendars as well, and we'll put that message out to other members that weren't able to make it tonight. Thank you.
Okay, awesome, thank you very much. Okay, Michelle, did you have other business? I see where you got these 2 articles here.
Yeah, those are just some interesting articles that were forwarded to me, so I thought I'd share them with the commission.
Okay. Do we have any other business to address tonight, Commissioner Carey?
No, I don't.
Oh, I see your light on, okay. Then you're all set? Okay, then a motion to adjourn would be in order.
Motion, we adjourn.
Okay, we have a motion, do we have a second? Commissioner Carey seconded it. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes, we are adjourned.